two websites. Your website, Leveraging Military Skills to Advance Your Civilian Career. We'll start with just a little bit about our backgrounds. As you know, I'm Ann Jones. I'm the founder of Piton Incorporated. I'm also was formerly the assistant dean at Georgetown's Business School, and I oversaw the career management for all their MBAs, as well as for the alumni for the entire business school. And so I've had a lot of experience watching people make good changes and make good decisions to improve their job and career success. And prior to that, I was a recruiter and I managed MBA training at Citigroup. And so that's where my experience comes from. Chad?
Hi, my name is Chad Storley, and I'm the author of Combat Leader to Corporate Leader, 20 Lessons to Advance Your Civilian Career. And what Combat Leader to Corporate Leader does is it provides veterans, regardless of their service, their rank, or their experience level, 20 really common and well-understood frameworks of military skill sets that they can apply to business and that businesses need. Examples like performance coaching, which is from the military performance counseling statement, how to take that, retool it, reframe it, and introduce it into a civilian company, because that's where that veterans can really have great big impacts on what they do. I am an Iraq combat vet, and then also a retired Army Special Forces lieutenant colonel with a bunch of different experience levels, and then I also advise Afterburner Incorporated. And Afterburner, for those of you that don't know, provides consulting and management level education in how to apply military frameworks to business. And if you've heard of the flawless execution model, which Afterburner teaches, it's all about how to take best of practice, best performance military skills and put them into a business. So it's a pleasure to be here today, and thank you, Ann.
Hey, thanks so much, Chad. And I'm thrilled to have Chad together working with me, because I think the two of us come from very different backgrounds, and hopefully we'll be able to share different perspectives on some of the challenges of making a career transition. There are a lot of things we want to accomplish, but we're really going to focus today on three goals. We want to outline a strategy for executing a career change, and that's number one. The second thing is we want to address some pitfalls to avoid and some misperceptions that are out there of employers. We want to just put that out there so you can be aware. And then finally, we hope, as I mentioned, to provide a perspective from both the employer side and the veteran side, as well as giving some insights into what the recruiter sees and what the career changer experiences. I'm going to start with a slide that was shared with me by Chad that I think is really interesting. This slide comes from a report that was done by the Society of HR Management, and they're, in terms of, as many of you who have that background, they are sort of one of the top groups in terms of getting information in the world of HR. And they put out a survey, and the questions were challenges of hiring employees with military experience. And I found this interesting, and I know Chad did as well, that the number one and number two challenges for employers, and this is from the employer's perspective, is one, translating military experience to civilian skills. That is, helping employers understand how your background is going to make their company succeed. Second is translating from military culture to workplace culture. Making a transition from one job to the next, on average, it takes about 6 months to really get the hang of a new company and a new company's culture. If you're making the transition from that's a major cultural shift, let's say from a military culture to a corporate culture, that can be a tough transition. And so I think it's interesting that these are what employers are seeing, and so we want to talk about how to address those two key challenges. Chad, do you have anything you want to share with us before
Yeah.
the next slide?
SHRM has actually done two of these different types of studies. They did one for regular veterans, and then they also did one for military veterans, and they discovered the same things, that this translation of military skills to civilian skills is really what will help differentiate a candidate both in initial hiring and then also internal promotions to make that person better for their job. So learning how to apply military skill sets to civilian corporations is really what differentiates people and makes them stand out at all levels. So when Ann and I go through the Plan, Prepare, Execute, we're going to talk a lot about this, how to do this translation and to get this framework and this mindset, because once a candidate can translate military to civilian and really apply their past experience, they've suddenly opened up a whole history and a whole new resource group that's going to make this person just much more valuable to a company and to that person's success. Ann?
Great, thanks. Yeah, I really like the way that Chad sort of shared explains that that you can change this from being an obstacle to really being a benefit. Chad, do you want to talk about this needs assessment?
One of the things that Ann and I really try to do is that when you look at this chart and show the availability on the bottom scale, from on the left side to high, on the right side to low, and what veterans really need to be valuable to their career success, on the left-hand side from low to high, there's a lot of availability of resume writing classes and job fairs and how to interview. And then also up on the right-hand side, there's some people that are doing some professional dress and manners, and the ACP program, the American Corporate Partners, which provides mentoring, does a really nice job of providing mentors. But what Ann and I really are focusing in on is translating military to business, help with networking, and this job and career search planning, which is what Plan, Prepare, Execute is doing. So what we're trying to do is take this really necessary skill set to veteran success and then try to make it just a little bit more available, which is why we're recording it, and we'll post the links on our website so how people can view it. So it's this type of translating military to business, networking, and effective job and career search planning that's really going to make a veteran the standout candidate for both a job and then for an internal promotion. Thanks, Ann.
Thanks, Chad. Again, I think that's Chad's background of having the military background and also being in the business world. I really like the fact that we're focusing on where we think that all of you are going to get the biggest bang for your buck in terms of where to put your energy to move forward. Chad, do you want to walk through this Plan, Prepare, Execute slide?
So what we'll do is the Plan, Prepare, Execute framework is really very similar to what people have seen from their military experience, whether Army, Navy, Air Force, or Marines. For the planning, that's about gathering intelligence, defining what you want to accomplish, and then you move into preparing, where you do wargaming and rehearsals to really get the groundwork of what you're going to be do so you're ready for your mission. And then you go out and execute it and conduct an after-action review. So we'll now provide much more technicolor to these, but Plan, Prepare, Execute really helps veterans because it is framed in such a way that's something that they already stand from their military experience and training. So we'll now go ahead and dive into it. Ann?
Great. And from someone without, for any of you we have a few who don't have a military background on there, I often think of Plan, Prepare, Execute also in terms of the knowing what you want, getting what you want, and having it be what you want. So that's sort of from what I would say the non-military language. So why are we here? Chad, you want to talk about the transition from military to corporate?
One of the big problems, and I initially did absolutely stumble when I was doing my transition because I thought, hey, I've got my military experience and there are corporate jobs out there. They need me, and this is how it's going to work. But what happened is that it initially didn't work very well because didn't do that translation and that transition very well. Because initially I kind of just disregarded my military experience and tried to go out there and demonstrate what I was doing. So what I finally did is I went back and I took those military attributes, took it for what the job needed, but then I also brainstormed and came up with ideas. Hey, these are military skills that I have. These are things that businesses need, and this is how I can do it. And so one of the things that I came up with is just ideas, and that's a lot about what the book is about and on my website, is finding things that businesses need that I can provide that's going to make me different, that's going to make me more valuable to a company, and it's going to help me both get hired and get promoted, and it definitely has. So as we walk through Plan, Prepare, Execute, it's all about combining what military people have, what the company needs, how you leverage more of the military background to apply it to a business to help your career success. Anne.
Thanks, Chad. And as someone who's worked with a lot of veterans and on both recruiting them and also helping them get jobs, I've seen that a number of people go through the same challenges that Chad did, is, first just jumping out there and let's get a job without stopping to think, how do I exactly plan and prepare and then execute that job search in a way that's strategic. Chad?
One thing that I didn't know about when I was doing my transition too is that there's a lot of corporate executives out there with significant military experience. So I just have a few with Bob McDonald in the upper left-hand corner. He's now the CEO of Procter & Gamble, former Army officer, down to John Ryan, who's the CEO of the Center for Creative Leadership from the Navy. All of these guys, and where John Ryan was a former admiral, A.G. Lafley, John Meyer, Steve Reineman, Ken Hicks, Bob McDonald, all were lower ranking either officers or NCOs. So there's a great deal of experience. So it's really easily kind of get out there and that you're the only one out there with military experience. In fact, there's hundreds of CEOs out there with military experience. So the military is really a great background for business and for nonprofit organizations and for government. So always, that's what I just always constantly remind people, is that there's a great many people out there with military experience that it really has helped them. So when you start to do your initial planning for transition, it's always great to look back and say, hey, these are some success stories. These are guys that it really worked well for, and how can we help them succeed. Anne?
Thanks, Chad. And I think Chad brings up such an important point here, is that there are so many people at the top who have succeeded by using their experience from the military and the sort of sense of integrity and culture that brings. You will find when you're going out in the job market that many of the recruiters don't have as much experience with people in the military. So sometimes looking to some of these more senior people can help keep you sort of aligned with a role model, but also helps you being an educator when you're out there talking to people about how a translation of the military experience can take place. So let's talk about the first part about that, which is the plan. Gathering intelligence, defining the mission, showing your value. The more you know about where you want to go and the more information you gather, the more successful you're going to be. Two rules that I like to stick to about that first stage of planning is, number one, is you cannot gather intelligence in a vacuum. right? You can't sort of sit alone and say, I think this is the career I want to go into. I kind of have an idea of it. You really need to get out there and you need to be talking to people and meeting with people. The second part, which almost seems like the antithesis, is that ultimately you own the mission. So as you're going out and you're networking and you're making your plan for where you want to be, it is very easy to have people sort of say, well, you should be going into this sort of job, or this is where your skills match. And you do need to make sure that you're being true to yourself and true to what your values are. I want to just stop here and ask a quick poll. I think in terms of planning, one of the things that can help the most in terms of knowing you know, what's right for you and learning things is to keep a journal. So I'm interested in who out there is keeping a journal and who out there does not keep a journal with this group. Like I said, I mean, there's a journal sort of, you don't need to have the Dear Diary, today was a good day, but a chance to write down, this is what I'm learning, this is what I'm thinking, and this is where I am. And I will just, it's interesting, of the people who have voted on the poll right now, it's it looks like most of you do not keep a journal. So I think that's interesting, and I wouldn't. I don't know what Chad thinks, but I would really encourage you to begin to write things down. It helps you go and think about where you want to be.
And one of the things too for the diary, you could go back and look at some of your emails that you've either written to friends or family or acquaintances and see, hey, what am I saying here? And that is some way that you could go back just for 30, 60 days and look, and that could be the start of a journal, or at least capture some of the things that you're looking for, what you want to do. So just looking back through correspondence can be a great way to start a journal and to determine, hey, what are my goals and what am I really do I want to do? Anne?
Great, thanks. And at the bottom of the slide, you'll see that I use the phrase the rule of threes. And again, I think when you're first starting out and you're making your plan, trying to figure out what you want to do next, if you stick to the rule of threes, that is, I'm going to make 3 phone calls today, I'm going to send 3 emails, I'm going to write 3 letters. It's an easy way to get you moving forward, because this planning stage can be quite onerous, I think, in the very beginning. Okay, so now we're going to talk a little bit about networking, because I think, again, as I said, in terms of the planning part, the more information that you can get, the better. And I want to share with you this sort of pyramid of networking, and networking that I think for long-term success. If you base your networking on what I call informers, there are informers, influencers, and decision makers. Informers are the people who are going to help you understand the culture of a job, what the language is about a job, who's who in a job, who are the influencers in a job. When you start networking, when you're talking to people about the job, I would recommend that everyone focus initially their attention on those informers. They're the easiest people to network with. They're usually people at your level, and they're the people who are going to help you when you get up to the stage of the influencers or the decision makers, the people who are actually going to hire you. So when you're out there networking, really focus on who are those people who can give me the information and give me the contacts. Chad?
One of the things is that networking is almost, you can view it as your way to gather intelligence. A lot of times, one purpose of networking is to help you connect with people where you can sell your capabilities and what you can do to help position yourself better for a hiring decision. But networking is also a way for you to find out about what's going on in the industry, what companies are hot, what aren't, who are managers or VPs that you want to work for. So networking really can be thought of as a way for you to gather intelligence about what's going on, how you think that you can best sell your capabilities. So networking is a critical part of planning for that career transition and really discovering what you want to do or where your skill sets and interests are best suited. So network also to help make connections, to position yourself for a job or jobs that you want, but also network to discover and learn about what is going on and what you need to study and learn to do to be successful. Anne?
Okay, thanks, Chad. We want to talk a little bit about, with the networking and with that gathering intelligence, brainstorming and defining your value to the business. Chad?
So when you're brainstorming too as part of planning, there's what I call the action framework, which stands initially for attributes, and those are things that are positive employment characteristics that you have, such showing up to work on time, work ethic, trustworthy. And then there's the concrete skill sets, any certifications, language training, if you were trained in maintenance or into any of the Microsoft Office products. And then finally up there is the T for translating military skills to business. And that's the planning, the coaching, the team leadership, risk analysis. And the more you move up from attributes to your concrete skill sets to translating your military experience, that's really where you start to get up into things that are really going to differentiate you and find a business is going to value it. So the uniqueness too is also because when you start getting up and translating military skills to business, remember that the Gulf War II veterans are only little less than 1% of the total population. So now you're presenting incredibly unique skills that businesses need that businesses do not have any really source to get. So that's going to make you a standout and really discovering and translating these military skills and how to apply them to business and organization is what is going to make you a standout. So this action framework is part of my military.com column that was published a few days ago. So if you go to military.com or go to my website and look under the advisor section, you'll find it. So it's the action framework. You can actually Google action framework too and it'll come up. But that's a great way for you to define and decide what makes you unique, and that's a really, really big part of planning and preparing for your transition to discover all those things that you have, both attributes, concrete skill sets, and things that can be translated to business. That's going to make you a standout person in both in a job too, but also in an industry. Anne?
Thanks, Chad. And Chad, I like the way that Chad used the word the sense of discovery here, because you are, as you're planning, as you're gathering intelligence, you may have an idea about what are the unique things that you bring to a civilian role. But it's really through that gathering information that you will discover the things that are really the match between what you bring and what's interesting to a recruiter. And so that action framework, I think, is a really great way to move from being a fit to being the best fit. Chad, you want to talk about this part, preparation?
Once you have your plan done, then to do the preparation is the next step. First of all, the networking. Networking is something that you're going to really do throughout all the plan, prepare, and execute stages. So you really wanted to do that, and networking too, and introduce you to the Vimo link that we have where you can go through the Networking Success for Veterans webinar. But networking is something that takes a while, that you need to do constantly, and part of that networking is getting informational interviews, and Ann will expand on sitting by Aunt Nellie, but then also to preparation is that it increases your stages. And one thing that you do when you're when you're preparing is that networking and talking with people, reading industry journal and reading magazines is going to help expose you to skill sets you either want to emphasize, such as the leadership, coaching, and planning side, but it also may expose you to things such as accounting, finance, or maybe statistics that you don't know so well. And so part of your preparation may be taking 1, 2, 3 classes at a community college to help you further your skill sets so you're ready to go into your execution phase. Anne?
Hey, thanks. And yeah, let me address the sitting by Aunt Nellie quote because I think this is a helpful one. If you're making a career transition from military to civilian or from engineer to banker or lawyer to doctor, any big career change, you're going to want to know not only what the skills are, but what the culture is. What is it that those people do every day? How do they dress? What's the language that they use? When do they show up to work? When do they work overtime? All those things, they need to be concepts that you're really familiar with. And you can learn a lot of this, one, by doing informational interviews and reading, but sitting by Aunt Nellie really is a way of sort of saying, I want to sit next to somebody and watch them do what they do. Now, there are a lot of groups out there. In fact, I know, if anyone's interested, let's say in a job in law enforcement, you can do a drive-along where you can sit next to somebody who's doing that job as they conduct the job and watch them do it. There are some parts in banking, actually, where we've had people who wanted to go into sales and trading and sitting next to somebody and watching them just interact. It's a terrific way to get into the culture. And it's something that when it's possible, people are often happy to have you do. Do you mind if I just shadow you for a day? So that's what sitting by Aunt Nellie really means. And when we talk about the first 2 stages of the job search, let me walk you through what I would say are the 4-stage job search. So the 4 stages of a job search, or the 4 stages of a job opening, begin as this. In the beginning, companies are always on the lookout for good talent, right? Even if there's no job, there's always a company that, every company will say, if there's a great person, we want to know about it. The second stage of a job opening is when a company realizes that they have a need. We need to hire somebody on this manufacturing floor site to do operations, but they haven't quite figured out what that person looks like. The third stage is when you have a job. Let's say the company has a job and they're beginning to ask around. They're looking for referrals. And the 4th stage is that job gets posted online, right? It's open to the universe. It's on monster.com. So those are the 4 stages. In the first 2 stages, when companies are on the lookout for talent, where they know they have a need, you're really only competing with yourself at that point. And that's important to know. So if you're out there networking and you've been watching what people are doing and getting your name out there, you can take advantage of those first 2 stages. That 3rd stage is when people are looking for referrals. Again, if you're out there, if you're meeting people, if you're networking, the first thing when a job is posted, the first thing a recruiter does is call their contacts and say, can you recommend anyone? So if you can be in that group already, you're going to be considered. Once you wait until the final step, until something comes on a job website, really you're competing against anyone who has access to the internet. So we really sort of encourage you to focus on those first 2 stages. That doesn't mean you're not posting, applying for jobs online. But I think if you can work on those first 2 stages, you're going to be more successful in the long term at finding a good match. Chad?
No, this is great. And one of the things about the stages of the job opening is that you will never know where you are. When you talk to network to somebody or and you're preparing and going in here, that there may be one job that was just posted online, but then there may be 4 others where the companies are just right now on the lookout for talent and you don't know where you fall. So to constantly be networking and on the lookout is I guess I can't overemphasize the importance of it. So always being prepared and ready with that resume, that the suit ready to go is essential, because once you impress somebody, they're going to be on the lookout to get you in that organization. Or you may impress somebody when the companies are on the lookout for talent, and they may refer to you to a friend that has 4 jobs that they're looking for referrals. So just because you have that one person, it doesn't necessarily mean that you weren't successful. I had a time when I was networking with someone when I was a Georgetown student, and I went and talked to him. We had a good conversation. It went well, and they said, "Hey, you should go really talk to this other person. You'd like what they have to say." So I set up an appointment, went to talk to them. We had 2 or 3 really good conversations and an office visit. I didn't hear anything from them for about 7 months, and then I got a call saying, "Hey, I'm setting up this 40-hour internship, and I'm not talking to anybody else because I want you." And that's where having this network and having all these different contacts over these 4 stages of a job opening really will help make your career transition and planning successful. Anne?
Hey, thanks, Chad. We want to talk about another part of the preparation, which is making sure that you're ready for the workplace. So Chad has broken it down to 6 R's, which I really like and I really find helpful. So I'll have him walk you through it.
Ready for the workplace is just a really simple 6 R's that I like to do. First of all, the thing is like running. It's working out, and doing a transition is stressful. So by keeping up with your physical training and everything, it really helps you, gives you energy, and puts you in a better frame of mind. And then the recon is you learn an amazing amount of skills just going to a workplace, watching what people are wearing, what time do people show up for work, if I can get an informational interview, how do people chat around cubes, or is everybody looking down at their desk? How do bosses treat people? It also helps you to rust off skills and make sure that you're ready to go. And then also, when you're getting ready to go to work, it helps you get those friendships or build friendships. Also, a focus on results. What's important for a company? Is this company very sales focused, so they really want to see a lot of customer contacts? Or is it more that they're focused on certain metrics? If it's a call center, that they want the calls down to a certain amount of time. But running through the training, the reconnaissance, the friendships, and the results are also going to help you relax and make you much more comfortable in any type of preparation that you're doing. So as you prepare, preparation helps you relax. So it's just like if anybody's done a lot of reflexive shooting, if they're a veteran. The first time you do reflective shooting, it's kind of uncomfortable, you're tense, but the more times you get ready to bring up that weapon to shoot and then put it back down to the ready position, the more relaxed and ready, prepared that you actually are. So ready for the workplace, just a great simple framework to help people prepare to be more ready for either an interview or that first day at work. Anne?
Great, and I'm going to just point out three of these R's that as Chad was talking, really impacted me. When I moved from New York City to Washington, D.C. to take on a new role, one of the first things I knew is I was going to be working long hours. And so actually I signed up to run a marathon. And having the responsibility to get up every morning and go for a morning run before I went to work. It gave me something to work for, to be successful at outside of my new job. And it also helped me stay in physical shape for what was a pretty grueling first year of my job. The second thing I really worked on was rusting off my skills. I knew I was going to be doing a lot of budget work. I hadn't done a lot of budget work in the last year, and so I really did go and go online and take some online courses to make sure that my Excel skills were as good as I was hoping they would be. And then the third one that really sticks out here is renewing and building friendships. As you go and look for a new job, and as I did, you're contacting loads of people and you're doing informational interviews. As you start that job, it's great to contact all those people again and say, here's where I landed, here's what I'm going to be doing. You'll get a great deal of moral support, and also you've got people to support you with ideas as you move forward. So I really like these 6 R's, and I think all of them are really terrific. Okay, so we've talked about planning and we've talked about preparation, and now we're going to talk about actually being in there, being in the new job place, that's sort of executing. I would say, and I'm going to hand this over to Chad, but I would first say that statistically, almost anyone, no matter where you're going in the job workplace, the first 6 months of a new job is tough. You'll question yourself. You'll question whether you should have taken that job, whether they should have hired you. Usually the first 6 months can be the toughest of a job, and knowing that and preparing for that can make it probably not easier, but at least is not as surprising. Chad, you want to talk about conducting the mission and the after-action review?
When you get to the execution phase, and especially if you're doing a lot of, if you're at the point where you're doing a lot of interviews, and this is equally true if you're applying for a job or if you're looking for an internal promotion, that after action review, after you do that interview or you did your first either if you're working in a call center, you did that first customer call, always kind of pause and look through as like, hey, went through what happened, what went on, what did I do well, what didn't I do well, and then what's the plan to make it better. And what this does is it helps you, instead of like attacking yourself, to say, oh man, I really dorked that up. I didn't do it well. My handshake was weak. There were 3 people in the room. I had 2 copies of my resume. The after action review helps you say, okay, hey, I didn't do this. This is my plan to fix it, and this is what I'm going to do. So you're constantly focused on, when you're executing, looking at what you're doing, but then always putting in a plan to correct and make it better. So there's no poor attitudes. It's a constant focus on understanding what you're doing, looking at it realistically, and then putting a plan in place to make it better. So part of Plan, Prepare, Execute is that it's a circle. Once I get back to execution, I start, hey, how do I refresh my plan? Do I need to look at more things? Preparing, are there additional resources or skill sets that I need? I'm right back in there in execution, getting it done, and then you circle back. Anne?
Thanks, Chad. I want to address here, again, some real obstacles that are out there to getting a job or getting a promotion. And they sometimes seem to sort of, almost be contrary to each other. One of them is clinging too rigidly to your past military experience. Sticking with the way that you answered a problem in the military may be very different from how you want to answer something in a civilian job. And Chad, I think, very, very effectively talked about, when you, for instance, as an example, when you speak up in a meeting, showing initiative can be very different in a civilian job as in a military job. And so being aware of that is very important. The other side of that is not leveraging your past military experience. this, you know, as Chad said earlier, your military experience should be the thing that makes you an exceptional candidate. A lot of it will make you exceptional. So make sure that you're bringing a lot of that to your job. As an example, Chad has just talked about conducting the after-action review. This is something that is not done as well, I think, in the civilian world as it is done by people in the military. And so leveraging those things that are really going to make you special without clinging too much to the way that things are done. And then finally, I think a real obstacle out there is misconceptions by employers. And again, Chad mentioned earlier, while we have some phenomenal senior managers in the U.S. who come from the military, the average recruiter does not see as many veterans as they might have certainly a generation before. And so you are challenged by that, and you're also a bit of an educator. When you go out into an interview or join in the workplace, you are the example to the employer of this is what the military looks like. And so I really encourage you, even though there are going to be misconceptions out there, you should see yourself as the educator, the person who's going to sort of explain this is how we are. Chad?
Your past military experience is something that I think as you get into a job and you learn things, you'll initially be focused on learning a lot of the new job or what's going on. But then your past military experience, once you get a lay of the land and understand, and this is true with the civilian job market, is that you can start discovering so many things that can be applied. And the book Combat Leader to Corporate Leader and my website have a great deal of things to show kind of, hey, these are things that can be resources that can help you too. And the misconceptions are best dispelled by personal performance. And there is nothing that you can really do to really rid people of those misconceptions other than performance. And that is just something that has to be understood. You don't have to agree with it. You don't have to like it. But just understanding that performance speaks for itself. And once people see you perform, those misconceptions vanish overnight. Anne?
Absolutely. I want to go over just a couple of do's and don'ts about succeeding at the job. So a couple of don'ts is, one, as we said, don't apply your past experience to a new employment situation without modification. So we mentioned that earlier. As you take what you've known from your past, you want to put it through the filter of the new culture and the new way of working in your new organization. A don't, something that you want to be aware of, is treating others based on your past rank and position. And this can be a challenge if you were a senior rank or if you're a very junior rank. When you're in the workplace, we're treating you by the information you bring to that job. And so it's important to take off sometimes that sort of title in your head when you're working with other people. Again, when Chad talked about the 6 R's, he talked about running. Don't get too far away from the military appearance and fitness standards. The military does a wonderful job at helping men and women provide a sense of organization in appearance and in physical health. And this is something that employers know and really appreciate. So don't step away from what is one of your great strengths. A couple of do's. Do ask for and offer help in the career transition. Again, those first 6 months of a new job can be the toughest. And so reaching out and communicating is crucial for success. Again, as Chad and I both mentioned, be alert to the potential pitfalls of the corporate culture. General Peter Pace said something that I really liked. He said, choose your company carefully. you cannot change the culture. The culture will change you. As you're doing your planning and finding a place where you think you fit in, be very aware that you're choosing a place that's going to fit into your standards of behavior and your beliefs. And then finally, and I think this is so important at any time, but certainly during a tough economy, is maintaining that can-do attitude. Like the sort of sense of military organization and fitness, that can-do attitude is something that has been prized by employers when they hire people from the military. And that is going to help you not only in getting the job and overcoming obstacles in getting the job, but in succeeding in the job. Chad?
I think too is that when you're looking at what you can offer and succeeding, is that there was one thing that I saw where a veteran was trying to transition into the music industry out in LA, and he was actually his dress and appearance was actually a little bit too formal, and he wasn't really adopting the culture of the industry that he wanted to get into. And so that's another part, is that being aware of that culture and how do people dress. Again, back to the R's, doing your reconnaissance is really vital to your success. And that also being able to there and helping other veterans succeed is really important, and showing your lessons and helping communicate to people, hey, this worked for me, this didn't, is really helpful for when someone comes in. Anne?
Thanks. Yeah, and I really like that sort of constant networking with other people who are going through experience the same things that you're doing. Again, we've gone from the R's, we're gonna move to the P's. Patton. Again, Chad has really laid out, I think, a really nice way of focusing on successful execution through these letters. Chad?
Okay, so everybody can basically tell that I was a former Army infantry guy because I use a lot of acronyms and I'm exceedingly simple. But Patton is something, again, that I came up with about this paying attention with purpose, about really focusing on people that you're talking to and doing that action. That's one thing that people love about veterans, is that they look at a situation, they understand it, they plan, they execute, and that they improve. The focus on teamwork is another part that people just absolutely love, because military veterans know that teams are what gets things done, and teams are what gets things done consistently and well. The translating the military to business is that when you come in to a business, especially if you're just transitioning out as a junior enlisted member, you may only have 1 day of experience in that company, in that industry. But if you determine how you can use your 4 to 6 years of prior military experience, now you're there and you have 6 years of experience because you've figured out how to leverage your military experience. Your career development is your own. In the military, we had people above us in higher rank that would help us prepare for promotions. We had promotion timelines. We had boards and pre-boards to help us get ready for promotion. In the corporate world, there's none of that. So in the corporate, you have to be very aggressive in your career planning, how you look at things, how you network to do it. And the networking portion is something that you've continued about, is that you will not have all the answers. You will not have all the things that you need to do to either help you succeed in your career or help or know what to do for that business if you're new to it. So doing a network and helping people to do that will really help you. So the Patton, just like the R's, another simple framework that you can put in your hip pocket as you execute to make sure that these are things that I should be paying attention to and that will help make me successful. Anne?
Thanks, Chad. And as we sort of summarize, I think it's important to start our summary with understanding that a difficult hiring and promotion environment is not an impossible. market. No matter what is going on today, and today is it is a tough time in the economic environment, people are still out there looking for good candidates. People are still interested in getting good talent, and so it's important to keep that in mind. Also, companies hire and promote for today and for the future. So understanding how to get your name out there, how to be part of the network, not just network as an action, but be part of a network of people who know you and know your skills, is going to help you, sometimes not immediately, sometimes farther down the road. Plan, network, show your value, define your interests, work on the brainstorming that Chad talked about. Prepare, again, network again, use informational interviews, rehearse, get out there and practice doing it. And then when you're out there executing, understand and be aware of the pitfalls. There's some you can avoid, and there's some you just need to know that they may happen, and know that there are lots of options out for you. And then finally, always continue to expand your resources and your tools. Chad, would you like to add on to this summary?
No, that's great, Ann. Thank you.
Great. Chad, I want to hand it over to you for this slide.
This is a quote from Max Cleland. There's combat, then there's the rest of your life. We need survival skills for each battle zone. And Max Cleland was a former U.S. Senator from Georgia. He was an administrator and the Veterans Administrator. He was a key figure for a great number of years in the state of Georgia government. And he is also a triple amputee from the Vietnam War. A tremendous individual, but he really correctly highlights is that when you do the transition, it is different, it is difficult, and it's constant, but it is far from impossible to be successful. And those military skills and the drive and determination that Max Cleland used in his recovery was incredibly instrumental in his later success, both in the U.S. government and his various roles. So I think that this part of this planning is that you plan, prepare, and execute, and it's a constant cycle of how you do things. But you have to definitely have a plan, have multiple contingency plans, and then execute them, understand what needs to be better, how you can be better, what's the plan to be better, and then go and do it again. So it's again, the poor economy is not a reason to despair. It's more a reason to have a robust plan and execute it well. Ann?
Thanks, Chad. And I want to give a special thanks to Chad Coos, who really has been leading a number of meetings outside of this, and has taken time out from his day to share his information and his great experience with all of us. I'm just going to show this slide briefly because I talked about it in the beginning, that some of the books that I think personally are really helpful, and some of the resources that we have are on both our websites. So I encourage you to reach out to either Chad or to me if you have any questions you want to follow up on, as well as visit our websites. I have a blog where I answer a lot of questions, and Chad's got a number of great things, including some great resources. Thank you again for your time and your attention, and this event has been recorded, and so you'll be able to hear it again on our websites. Thank you all, and thank you, Chad.
Thank you again, everyone. Have a great day.